Chelsea. This is my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I am bringing you my monthly recommendations video for the month of September. Monthly Recommendations is a Goodreads group created by Trina from Between Chapters and Kayla Rain. I will link the group and all of the information for you down below. Every month they come up with a topic for booktubers or book bloggers to come up with a list and share their list of recommendations for that topic. And this month the topic is science fiction. Now, I read a good deal of science fiction. I've been reading more and more of it recently, but I realized thinking about this, I actually read a really odd assortment of science fiction. And so I decided that I was going to give you the most eclectic taste of the science fiction books I've read recently that I could come up with. So hopefully there will be something in here for everyone. For the first book I've got here, I decided to go with a good old classic that no one can argue with, and that is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I read this a little while ago, a few months ago. I'll link whatever wrap-up it was in. I went into this book knowing it was about a guy encountering the people of a genderless planet. So I was expecting it to be about gender, and it was, but I was also pleasantly surprised that it ended up being about so much more than that. I was particularly impressed with how it dealt with nationalism and systems of government. Basically, this is about an envoy who's sent to this planet where the people have no gender, and he's there to convince the two nations of this planet that their world should join this interplanetary alliance that they have never heard of. There are all sorts of themes going on here with politics and culture and, yes, gender. And I would really recommend this if you're looking to pick up a well-regarded classic science fiction book. On the other hand, if you want something brand new, totally quirky, with magic also, then I would recommend this one, All the Birds in the Sky by Charlie Jane Anders. I am breaking my self-imposed rule of not showing a book on the channel until I've hauled it, but I have already read this. I got it from the library when I read it, and now I own a copy. And this book I do not think will be everyone's cup of tea, but I wanted something quirky and offbeat because I like things that are quirky and offbeat, maybe that don't behave stylistically how you would expect something of that genre to behave. And this did that for me. This was so odd. This is a near-future, end-of-the-world catastrophes threaten type book, but it also has magic. One of the protagonists, Lawrence, is a computer genius. The other, Patricia, is a witch. We meet them when they are kids, and when they're kids, I would say it feels approximately very much like the present. It's not quite, though. There are a few odd technological things. And this book continues on, I think, like 10 years later in a near-future San Francisco that's very high-tech and hip and savvy, but the world is completely falling apart. And the atmosphere of this book and the things that just show up in the writing are so unexpected. So if you're looking for something that maybe is also fantasy and maybe is a little bizarre and doesn't necessarily have any space travel in it, this is on Earth, you could go with this book. Next is a pretty obvious one, I think, but I'm going from like the super weird to the super accessible, and I would say some of the most accessible science fiction books I've read are the Lunar Chronicles series by Marissa Meyer. I love these because they're fairy tale retellings and they're sci-fi, and that's a mashup that works so much better than you would think it would. In fact, I feel like these books read a little more like a YA fantasy series than anything else, and so this is actually a series I might recommend to someone who doesn't really think they're into sci-fi. I got my mom hooked on this series, and she does not like sci-fi at all, so that is why I felt like this series has to be in my recommendations for science fiction, because if you're watching sci-fi recommendation videos all this month and you're like, but I don't like sci-fi, you might like this. This series is also fairly light in tone, which I really appreciate. I'm holding up the first book here, which is Cinder, which is a Cinderella retelling, and then each book subsequently adds on an extra fairy tale protagonist. The second, Scarlet, is Little Red Riding Hood. The third, Cress, is Rapunzel. And the fourth, Winter, is Snow White. So now that I've given you some full-length novel recommendations, I thought I would recommend some shorter things. I thought for a novella, I would recommend to you Silently and Very Fast by Catherynne and Valente. This novella came up for me when I was filming my last video, and so I thought I would add it in for this one. It is also sort of a fairy tale thing, but in a much denser, hard to pick apart type way. It is about artificial intelligence, and it takes a while to piece together how it's about artificial intelligence. And Valente uses all of these myth and fairy tale themes and stories and tropes in order to sort of address the idea of artificial intelligence. And then the main plot is that you're sort of in this dreamscape with the protagonist, who is an AI, and this AI's human host of some sort. And it takes the whole story and then breaking into these different fairy tales and myths to sort of explain what's actually happened to them and their family. It's not a super easy read, but I think it's really worthwhile. It's very strange. It actually had a very strong emotional impact on me. I felt things. I think it is available on its own. I read it in a collection called The Melancholy of Mecha Girl, so if you can't get your hands on it individually, it's also available there. And then, while I was going into some shorter things, I thought I would do a shameless plug for the work of a family member. My aunt is a science fiction writer. She writes as Liz J Andersen, and she has had, over the past few years, 3 different short stories published in Analog magazine. I can't call to mind right now exactly what all 3 issues were. I will dig them up and provide links for you. But her short stories are comedic, interplanetary, veterinary science fiction. And I think that is just awesome. And of course I'm biased, but I do really like her stories. So I thought I would give them a little bit of a plug here. So this is my list of eclectic science fiction recommendations. I wanted to get an eclectic list because I thought that would be fun. And it was fun. I hope you had fun. Anyhow, let me know if you have read any eclectic or odd science fiction that you think I might enjoy that was not what you were expecting, or maybe isn't what you think other people think of when they think of science fiction. Anyhow, it has been nice chatting with you. That is all. Bye for now.